Hey everyone, today we are routing monitors from HackTheBox, a hard-rated machine. Immediately we can see there are two ports open, 22 for SSH and 80 for HTTP, and I've also set the host name in my Etsy host. Cool, so we'll go ahead and check out the directory busting. I'll go ahead and run that, and we get a few errors back. I run this in the background just so we can cover the majority of the directories, however in this case it isn't going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and do is I can use derb, as that will basically just work a little bit better than GoBuster. I'm also going to run whatweb, which will basically just dump information about the system. When whatweb gets back to me, we'll see a few things. So we have Apache, we have Ubuntu, and we have WordPress. Cool. So immediately when I see WordPress, I want to go ahead and check out whoopscan. So I'm going to go ahead and run whoopscan. Before I do anything, I want to go ahead and ensure that I'm updating it, like so. Let it update. Cool. Then what I want to do is I want to go ahead and run whoopscan. I pass in the URL monitors.htb, that's the host name, and I say to -e for enumerate and p for plugins. So we can go ahead and review the output. I see here that we have a WP with spreads plugin. Often in WordPress, plugins are put together kind of badly and insecurely, and therefore they don't tend to be the most secure, and therefore there are lots of vulnerabilities. In this case, straight away, we can see that there's a remote file inclusion. Go ahead and check it out. Really simple proof of concept over here. Basically, we just go to this path. We prepend some dot slashes before our file, and it will basically dump that out to us. I'm going to go ahead and test this on my end because the endpoint may not be vulnerable in this case. I'm going to go ahead to monitors. Let that load. Cool. Going to go ahead and paste the proof of concept, and we can immediately see that we have a Etsy password contents here. The reason we use Etsy password is because it's a very common Linux file on a Linux system, and it's just a really nice way to prove that you can read underlying contents of the system. And it's 9 times out of 10 always and also word readable. So looking at the actual contents of Etsy password, we have MySQL, which tells us it's running some kind of database, or MySQL in that case. And we have Marcus. The reason I look at Marcus is because it's a non-standard Linux user, and it has a console and a home. Cool. So now we have a rough idea of what the system is. Now we can go ahead and enumerate further. So we have basically control to look at whatever's on the system. Whereas the issue will give us, the version of Ubuntu it's running, that kind of thing, and we can really just kind of go from there. But that information isn't really useful to me. So initially, when I'm getting LFI or an RFA, whatever, I would want to go ahead and basically enumerate the file system. I'll go ahead and use this word list here. A really good one from Carlos Polyp. Apologize if I pronounce your name wrong. He is the creator of HackTricks, and he has a really great word list here. This basically covers the majority of most Linux files on a Linux system, and most importantly, in the case of this test, it covers Apache stuff, which is awesome. I'm going to go ahead and open this in raw. I'm going to go ahead and copy it. I'm going to go ahead and basically just capture this request in burp, so I can go ahead and work with it. Cool, going to go ahead and ensure my burp proxy listener is on. Going to go ahead into my proxy, intercept, go ahead here, hit go there, right click, send to intruder, go to positions. I want to go ahead and just clear the positions. I want to go ahead and just remove this and wrap it with these S's. That will basically say replace the contents of here with a string that I provide. In my case, I'm going to go ahead into my payloads. I'm going to go ahead and paste that word list that I mentioned before. I'm going to go ahead and hit start attack. In my case, I have the pro version of Burp Suite, so it's going to be a lot quicker than the free version, but that's no worries. You'll get through it eventually. And worst case scenario, you could always just minimize the word list. Or use dirbuster, for example. You could equally just use this URL and then prepend it like this. Go ahead and show you how you could do that. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this since I don't really need it right now. Go to GoBuster, the monitors.htb, and then put a slash in there. Go ahead and take the URL, this part here, and append it onto it, like this. Go ahead and then put it like that. And then we could then say we want the word list of then his word list, Carlos Polyp's word list, and then that would then do basically the same. I'll go ahead and demonstrate that. go ahead and nano just put a word list, go ahead and paste it in, like so, paste, cool, go ahead and save, and then we can just say then we want word list. In this case, I think GoBuster is handling it weirdly, but basically what you could do is you could just make it so that the application, the GoBuster will just append the string here onto your URL and it will work. Cool. So I'm not going to waste any more time with that, but basically if you fiddle around with it, it should work. Cool. So going back to my bug suite, we can go ahead and see that in our intruder we have a number of results. So for example, last log, if you go into the response, you can see here there's some contents. Some more content. After reviewing enough of this, I'm not going to waste your time going through each and every one. If we review enough of these and just basically go through one by one, we eventually hit an interesting one, which is Apache sites. Let's go down. There's a fair few, so this might take you some time to review, but that's okay. It's just a case of being persistent. In this case, we see Apache sites enabled 000 default.conf, and we can. Going to go ahead and save that. Cool. Now I'm going to go ahead into my Firefox. I'm going to go ahead and go to the URL. In this case, it is letting me go straight to it. However, in your case, you may need to clear your cache. Your browser may not know what this host is, and therefore it may just give you a dud page. Okay, so immediately when we see we have a big green page, this is obviously a lot different from our normal WordPress page. So I'm going to go ahead and just click around a little bit. So here we have a few bits and pieces. We can see here that there's a versioning label. I'm going to go ahead and just paste that and see what it is. Okay, so it's complete our tool-based graphing solution. Don't really know what that means, but it doesn't really matter in this case. I'm going to go ahead and type in the exploit afterwards just to see if there's anything in relation to that. Immediately we can see that there's a recent unauthenticated remote code execution, and there's also an SQL injection. Now, having tested both these attacks, it does not work. So the next step we need to do is to go ahead and get an authenticated session so we can go ahead and exploit this filter SQL injection. So what do we know really? So we need to log in, and often there are default creds. So the first thing I want to go ahead and look at is Cacti default creds. Go ahead and give it a Google. Looks like my internet has died. It's been a little bit flaky this morning. Apologies. Okay, have another go. Okay, cool. So there are a few pages on this. Go ahead and check out the first one. It's being a little bit slow, annoyingly. I already know, in my case, what to look for, but if you were doing a proper pen test on this, you would go ahead and obviously read each and every blog post or Stack Overflow post, whatever, until you find what you're looking for. In my case, it's in one of these. I'm not entirely sure which one, but I'll go ahead and keep looking until I find it. Here we see I ran into the same issue with Cacti. I found a posting to try use admin with the MySQL root password. So I know the username, but I don't know the password. Okay, so what can I do now then? So I need to really decide how I'm going to get the contents of that, how I'm going to get the MySQL password. Now, my word list didn't cover things like WordPress. It wasn't a WordPress-based word list. So the next thing on my agenda is to look into WordPress, because I know, for example, that WordPress wconfig.php may include the database credentials. In most cases it does, but you never really know. I'm going to go ahead and just append setlist to this so it gives me the right results. Cool, setlist WordPress.fuzz. Sweet, going to go ahead and grab this. Now, unfortunately, I don't know the absolute path to the WordPress installation, so I'm going to go ahead and just copy this for the moment, and I'm going to go ahead and try to enumerate it. So I'm going to go ahead and basically just do this. So .php. Now that won't work in this case, also because I spelled it wrong. It won't work in this case, but I know that if I go to, say, here, when it loads, and I go to work, wp login.php, I know that it will take me to a login. So this is at the root of the web server. So So I know that I basically need to traverse to all that work. So I'm going to go ahead and remove one of these. Okay, that didn't work. I'm going to go ahead and remove another one. That didn't work. Perhaps I spelt it wrong. Just going to go ahead and check that. Going to go ahead and try that one, and then we'll work forward this time. Nope. Or maybe the issue is that we're not reading it properly. Maybe we need to view it in source. And here, the reason it wasn't working is because it was all in PHP, and therefore the page wasn't rendering it to us. So it can be distracting. Although I have maybe just contradicted myself because it has actually indeed just rendered it to us. But anyways, the point is we have the contents now, and it's very important to go ahead and check the view source. I'm going to go ahead and just look through, see what there is on there. In the WP login, nothing really that interesting. But now that we know that we need to go backwards 3 times, we can basically use the same attack in our intruder. I'm going to go ahead into my intruder. Go into my intruder. Just check this is in the right place. I'm going to go ahead and just remove this so it looks like that. In fact, just to make sure it's completely correct, I'm going to go ahead and just take this entire line, just to be extra careful and ensure that it's right. I'm going to go ahead into here and just paste this there. Hasn't changed a whole lot. I'm going to go ahead and just remove this. Go to add. Go to payloads. Go to clear. Go to the word list, the WordPress fuzz.txt. And you go ahead and go into here. Go ahead and paste. This way, it will then use these payloads. Go to start attack. Here we have a bunch of content. In this case, this word list was a little bit overkill. I'm going to go ahead and just pause, because it may have found it already. In my case, I basically just look for config files. I'm going to go ahead and just have a look through, see if I can find. So there's a WP config. Again, I could have done this manually, but having word lists and stuff just covers a much larger space and much less time, and also makes it easier to traverse through it all and look through. So we can see immediately here we have a MySQL database username and a MySQL database password. WP admin and best administrator at 2020. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this password. I'm going to go ahead and paste it into my mouse pad, just for the time being, in case I need to refer to it later. Go into here, go into log into Cacti, admin, paste password, login. Sweet. Now we could of course try the default cred, say admin, but in that case that wouldn't work. But I advise you try it in all cases, just in case it may indeed be something simple as admin or admin Marcus. The reason I say Marcus is because that's like one of the users on the system. You never know. Okay, so moving on, we now have Cacti, which is awesome. What we're now going to go ahead and do is we're now going to go ahead and check out that vulnerability we found before on unauthentic remote code execution and filter SQL injection. Having tried this didn't work for me personally, but that's okay because we can use the SQL injection because it gives us remote code execution. So it's really no big deal. I'm going to go ahead and right click here, save link as, and go ahead into here. We'll do is SQLi.py. Now we're in here. I'm going to go ahead and clear this. We have Python 3 SQLi.py. If I can spell correctly, it's giving us what we need to type in. I'm going to go ahead and do T for target. Go ahead and paste right in there. Go ahead and grab the URL to the Cacti. In my case, it just wants the URL and not the whole path. That would suffice. Add in the U for admin, add P. It looks like I've done this before, so it's just going to fill it in there. I'm going to go ahead and just check my IP hasn't changed since I last did this. Has not changed. Cool. Sweet. I'm going to go ahead and right click, type in shells. What this will do basically is just create me a reverse shell. Real simple, just to listen. The command it runs is really rather simple. It may. Well, I messed this up a little bit. Move that. There we go. Basically, it just prints out a bunch of shell stuff and then sets up an RL wrap around netcat. What this will basically do is it will give me command substitution and that kind of thing, which is super helpful. I'm going to go ahead and run that anyways, shells. I'm going to go ahead and give it the port 1337. As you can see here, I've said, hey, listen here on this port. on this host with this username and this password. Cool, go ahead and hit enter on there. Cool, now we have a shell. ID, www data, sweet. So I don't really like this shell, so I'm going to go ahead and just use this Python 3 upgrade. Copy and paste. Cool, so now it's a little bit prettier to look at. So this next step is a little bit, it's a little bit confusing in the sense that you could actually skip exploiting Marcus and then get to root. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that anyways, because I think it's important to cover all avenues. I'm going to go ahead and just minimize all these so you can see better. Cool. So before the whole Marcus thing, I'm going to go ahead and just do my standard enumeration. So I'm going to go ahead and check out the current directory. There's a lot in here, and after a little bit of enumeration of what was in here, there wasn't anything really to look at. I'm going to go ahead and cd into temp. I'm going to go ahead and right-click here, go into my tools directory, into my previous escalation, lc web, and then basically just kill these into the system. But we don't have kill installed, so that's annoying. No worries, I'm going to go ahead and use a different technique. I'm only going to demonstrate so one of them, as we don't actually need to use any of these tools, and I don't want to waste time. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the netcat listener, and LVP on 9000, and then take the output of that, and then pipe it into a file, so we can put on linpiece.sh. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter there. In this case, I'm getting a denied because I did 900 and not 9000. Cool, that's now listening. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm now going to go ahead and cat linpiece, and then pass it into this port here. I will go ahead there, and then you can see here the connection's been made from here. Go ahead and hit Control C there, and then go ahead and cat linpiece, or however I spelt it. And you can see all the contents here. So sweet, now I have that working. And bash linpiece. My command substitution is a little bit confusing as to whether it's actually there or not. Bash linpiece.sh. I'm going to go ahead and pipe that to lin out. And then put an and there so it runs in the background. That will now run. As you can see here, if we go to lin out, we can now see that it's basically just enumerating as it goes along. I looked at that and there wasn't much in there. The most interesting thing I found in there was just a few bits and pieces about passwords and stuff, but there wasn't really anything to look at. So the next, my next thing is to basically say, okay, so who's on the system? We can look into Marcus. Okay, so there's Marcus on the system. You can go ahead and look into Marcus's account. Cool. See Marcus. I can spell correctly. I say that so often. Okay, so we have a few bits and pieces in here. We have a note. I'm going to go ahead and check it out. We can't read it. Same for the user.txt. There is a backup directory that's not so common in Linux machines. Maybe there's a service which creates this by default and it isn't very relevant, but in this case it's still interesting. So what I want to do really is I want to go ahead and see if I can look into that. Permission denied. Okay, that sucks. Now I spent a while basically trying to figure out what may be in there. Now if you're lucky you can probably guess, and it is actually very simple when you know, but when you know it's simple, right? If you don't know, then it's impossible. So for me personally, I may have taken a bit of a cheatsy approach. I went into the root of the machine and I just grabbed basically for Marcus. Nothing complicated, I just grabbed for Marcus really. And in my case, I believe it was in the etc directory that I initially used, I believe. So it goes here. I think that should be what I'm looking for. I'm going to go ahead and just ignore this. So it removes errors. Cool. So we've ran this, and there is a few results. In my case, we can see that there's a home Marcus backup.sh. Sweet. Now, this took me a while to find, as I wasn't aware that this was the avenue. A lot of time you spend basically enumerating and doing reconnaissance on the machine. In my case, it was simply just grabbing for the word Marcus and seeing what comes back. You may have different results. You may have different approaches. But that's what worked for me, and that's how I'm demonstrating it. Cool. So now we know the file, we can go ahead and cat it. Now, the reason we can cat it is because the privileges on this file actually allow us to read it. However, the directory does not allow us to list it. That's why we can read the file, but we can't read the directory because the permissions are set in that way. We can see here there's a password, and it's owned by Marcus. So it would be likely that this is potentially Marcus's password. I'm going to go ahead and swap in as Marcus. I'm going to go ahead and try. Sweet, that worked. The password, vertical edge 2020, worked, which is awesome. Cool. So moving on, what's next? So now we're Marcus. What do we want to know? Turns out my shell has died a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just break this. Go ahead and hit a new one. SSH, Marcus again. Maybe my internet died a second time. That would be annoying if it did. I think it did. Apologies, everyone. This is kind of annoying. Go ahead and just try and fix that on my end. Cool, let's have another try. Paste. Cool, that's now working. Sweet. So, I'm going to go ahead and ls. We have a note.txt. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Read it. To do, disable PHP info and PHP ini. Update Docker image for production use. Okay. So what it tells me is there's Docker running. So I want to know, is a Docker running in my instance? I'm going to go ahead and basically just do ps aux. This will basically just list processes, grep Docker, and we have a few results. The main one I'm looking at here is root user bin Docker proto TCP host IP. This is localhost on this port, container port. And what this basically means is it's saying open up a port on the system locally for this IP, for this port, sorry. So basically it's saying internally there should be an open port. If I go ahead and curl, annoying that my internet has died yet again. This is very annoying. Probably more annoying for you guys than it is for me, but it's annoying me very much so. Okay, we should be back now. Or not. Go ahead and create a new one. Yeah, so having some issues there with the VPN. Give it a second, it should come back online in a second. Go ahead and just give it again. We'll reconnect. Alright, again, apologies. The box retires today. I'd like to get the video out by today, so I don't really have time to do a re-record, so I'm just gonna have to go with it, you know, as life goes. Go ahead and paste. Cool, now we're back in. So I know there's Docker running, back to where we were. So what I want to do basically is look at more about the machine. So I'm going to do a netstat. Turn LP. Basically, this will just give me the ports that are listening on the machine. We can see here that we have 8443 running locally and locally only. So if I go ahead and was to try and go to say 8443 on the from my machine, it won't work, but internally it will. So if I go to curl, paste, but of course curl isn't installed, so that's annoying. If I were to go to say netcat, that would give me some results, but for simplicity's sake, I don't really want to have to mess with a restricted system, so I'm just going to go ahead and open what you call an SSH tunnel. You go ahead and exit here, and you go ahead and go SSH-L, and basically what we're going to do here is going to create a port forward, so we're going to all data that goes to localhost 8443 will be forwarded to localhost 8443 on this system. Basically saying that if we go to localhost 8443 on our Firefox, it will redirect us to the internal port on this machine. You hit enter, it requests a password. We're going to go ahead and copy this. Cool. Paste. Not quite sure if that passed up. Cool. So now we should have that working. If we go ahead and now check out localhost, again, if I can spell correctly, 8443, we get a bad request. It wants TLS. Okay, no worries. HTTPS. Okay, now we're getting some results back, Apache Tomcat and all this and that. No worries. That's awesome. We can now move forward. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to go ahead into my web. I'm going to go ahead into my GoBuster. I'm going to go ahead and just see if I can find my previous GoBuster. I don't have one, so I'm going to have to redo it, no worries. I'm going to go ahead and I'll just use this one, I guess. I will start from the beginning, actually. Maybe simpler. Give us duh. We have to include the HTTPS so it does it correctly. I'm going to go ahead and go user share word lists deb common.txt. Go ahead and run that. Now we're getting an error, some certificate error, add a K in there. That will basically just bypass certificate checks. We have an accounting directory, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and paste that there. Give it a second to load. Hopefully this time it isn't my internet, it's just slow. It may indeed be my internet again. Oh, maybe not. Okay, should be, but yeah, we have an off biz. I'm going to go ahead and Google off biz. I can see it in the title, no point wasting time. And OF biz. Apache OF biz or off biz. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that, but that's okay. Go ahead and rehit my internet because it's glitching again. Come on, Google. Yep. Go ahead and Google that, Apache off biz, exploit. Apache off biz XML PC Java deserialization. That sounds interesting and it's fairly recent. Ahead of time, I'm going to go ahead and just open up a MSF console as it takes a few seconds to boot up and I'd rather not waste any more time. So here we have basically an exploit. It's supported in Metasploit, which makes my life easier, but to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Metasploit, so if I can find a Python version, I tend to use that since, you know, I think Metasploit uses Perl, and I don't really know Perl as well as I know Python. Cool, so now we're in Metasploit, I'm going to go ahead and hit use. It has a few issues finding it. I'm going to go ahead and just start from the beginning, Apache, off biz. I'm not quite sure, I think it's because in this one they spelled it wrong, like on the page. It says deserialization versus deserialization with the Z. So obviously there's an error on the page. You can't obviously take everything for granted. You have to actually check things out. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and show options. We can see there's a few bits and pieces. You know, there will be the obligatory R host. So in my case, the R host would be localhost. If I can spell correctly, R host local. I'm going to go ahead and use 127.0.0.1 because it may struggle with localhost. It's just simpler to just use ports directly. Set our port. Our port is fine. Set the L host 10, 10, 14, 7. Set the. We can keep the R. We can keep the L port. Actually, no, we need to change the L port at 4444. And we'll hit run and see what happens. Okay, nothing much happened. Running automatic check, set automatic check to false to disable. We'll go ahead and paste that. We'll go ahead and hit run. Okay, getting an error here saying the address is already in use. So go ahead and check out the options. So here we can see SVR host, server host is set to this port. We want to go ahead and basically just change this to 8081, copy, set to 8081, because it needs to serve basically the exploit. In this case, it's now running. We're going to get a bunch of command output, which almost looks like it's kind of working, but kind of not working. But in this case, we actually do get an interpreter shell. We go ahead and hit shell. This will just drop us into a super basic Linux shell. Go ahead and do ID, and it will take a second, and it says we're root. Awesome, but this isn't the end of it. So if we look at hostname, we actually realize we're not just root of monitors, we're root of some Docker instance. There are ways to check whether you're in a Docker instance. I could probably just Google it, but in my case, I know I'm in a Docker instance because when I was originally looking at the PSOX, it mentioned about Docker. You can see here as well on this IP, so we can tell that we're in a Docker instance. I'm not sure if IP add will work in this case, but we'll find out. Yep. So look, we have IP 172.17.02, and then here we have 172.17.01. I guess it's just a second a second Docker instance in our case. Maybe I'm not sure if that particularly means anything. Maybe it's just the subnet is a /24, and therefore it doesn't really matter as long as this octet is, as long as these 3 octets are the same. Anyways, moving on, as I want to try and get this video done soon. I'm going to go ahead and have a look more into the system. So I know we're in a Docker instance, so I want to basically do some enumeration. I'm going to go ahead and use our good friend HackTheBox again. As you can see here, Carlos Polyp is also the guy who made HackTheBox, also going to check out HackTheBox Docker. It's a great resource and very well documented and just really good, and I just like the way it's put together. But basically we'll follow a lot of checklists because I think it's better to be thorough than it is to be skipping bits and pieces. In this case, we have container capabilities. Now, funnily enough, actually, this description only lists 5 different capabilities. Initially, I skipped this because I was like, okay, I don't have any of these abilities. But in the end, it turns out I did. So yeah, actually, I may have had this one if I recall thinking back, but I did it a slightly different way. Is what happened with me. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. Have sh print. Yeah, so if I recall correctly, actually, I ended up just googling each of these modules with the word Docker at the end just to see what was what. In this case, the reason this didn't work, and I realized this is just due to my poor methodology, is I was copy and pasting this as its capitals in the find. So I was going new, I was going file, actions, find, and then pasting the capitals. But however, this is lowercase, so that's maybe why I didn't find it. That'll be why. Silly me, but capsys module here shows here that we have an exploit vector capsys module. Cool, so we can go ahead and Google that. Now looking back, I realize how silly I was for that, but I'm going to go ahead and Google it anyways. Capsys module, Docker. Because as you can see here, it says actually capsys module is a vulnerable, is an exploitable capability, and yet I missed it because I pasted the capitals rather than lowercase and didn't realize it was using lowercase rather than capitals. So that was just bad news on my end. But you have to admit you have to admit that you're not perfect. Anyways, moving on. So now we're on to the Docker container breakout. In simple terms and wide strokes, really what we need to do is we need to create 2 files when we can get down to it. We need to create 2 files. We need to create a reverse shell.c and a make file. Basically, what this will do is it will use our capability to make us root, basically to escape the Docker container, and will make us root. So basically, the C file will just be able to use that capability and then drop as a shell, basically. It will then be able to abuse that capability, execute the shell process as the root of the system, which will therefore mean we have escaped the Docker instance. We have here the make file, and we want the reverse shell first. I'm going to go ahead and grab the reverse shell code. I'm going to go ahead into here. I'm going to go into a spare thing I have. I'll open up a fresh one. Down here. Code. Actually, we'll go back to box monitors. Cool. Go ahead into code. We'll just open up a code in this directory so we can refer to it. Yes, I trust. Go ahead into new file. Reverse shell.c. I believe they want me to call it. Go ahead and paste that in there. Let me go ahead and just check. Yeah, so reverse shell.c. I'm going to go ahead and just copy that so I get it right. If you follow these exploit walkthroughs often to the name, it often makes life easier. You tend to get less issues on the way if you say use R shell versus reverse shell. It's just often it will matter. So I tend to try and follow them to the line if I can. Obviously with the adjustments where required. So in my case, I need to basically update the IP here. So I need to put my IP in there. 10.10.14.7. Go ahead and just replace this 1339. Cool. No changes needed on that one. On the next one, we need to go ahead and download the make file. Again, there's more information as to how this all works I think it's a bit beyond the scope of this video, to be honest. And I'm not an expert in Docker, so I think you probably understand it more if you did your own research. So apologies for that. I'm going to go ahead and go to make file, capitalize the M in make file, go ahead and save, paste that in there. Cool. So that's now in there. I'm going to go ahead and just, I believe exit will drop me into my interpreter shell instance. So when I dropped into a shell by interpreter, it basically gives me a way to interact with the Linux system, but I still have my interpreter shell, so I just press Control-C here, exit terminate channel, now I have here, now I can just go to, let's say, ls, and it will still give me Linux command execution, but just obviously in my interpreter instance. What I want to do now is I want to go ahead and upload those files, so I want to go ahead to upload, I want to go ahead and do read link F and basically take these files, grab this one, upload to the root, and when that's done, upload again to the root. Cool. All right. So in my case, and we'll find out when we actually get into a shell, there was two ways that the previous escalation worked. Either it will work perfectly how it is now, or it will want me to do some modification of the system, basically including libraries for compilation. We'll find out when it actually lets us into the shell, and we can basically go ahead and see what's what. And it may require us to do some modification of the file system, or it may just work straight away. I'm going to go ahead and open up a listener on 1339. I'm going to go ahead and just hit ls in here just to check that the file has uploaded correctly. We can see here there's a reverse shell.c, and there should be a make file in there. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and go make, and just see, hopefully this will work. We'll find out. Okay, slightly less output than I'm used to. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. In my case, it did not work. I'm going to go ahead and make it clean. This would basically just clean. I think it cleans out. I think it just prepares basically the system for compiling. Make it again. It seems to be doing the thing where it's not letting me immediately build, so I might have to do some rejigging of the system. Funnily enough, actually, in my write-up for this machine, it actually worked perfectly first time. That's okay though. I can demonstrate this method and then we can go ahead from there. All right, cool. So what I need to do basically, I need to update the make file. So in my write-up, this worked okay, but I'm not a huge fan of using this kind of stuff. I'd rather just know directly. I'm going to go ahead and listen to lib, and we go ahead and then use the same command they used, basically to get the contents. Yep, that should now give me what I'm after roughly. So I kind of messed that one up, but the annoying thing about using interpreter is you don't have the niceties of having the reverse shell that I used to use down here. I'm going to go ahead and run that again. Just actually this time just going to do the same thing, but I just want to can't get my words out. Just want to put this in here, Linux headers, and then just do that. That should now give me a list of the Linux headers. Or not. Potentially, it's just a case of actually looking into the directory. I'll go ahead and check it out directly. This is just me messing up since I'm recording. I find, to be honest, recording a little bit more makes things a little bit more difficult. Oh, I know I do. I'm in the wrong directory, so I need to ls lib modules. That's what I'm messing up with. So yeah, I find recording a bit awkward. I tend to mess up more often and tend to have a lot more issues. But again, it's just a case of being quite new to this whole YouTube thing and this whole personal challenge to myself to try and upload and actually try and get some decent content online. I know there are other like Zach and stuff like that online, but to be honest, I just wanted this for myself. Whether it's the case people watch it or not, it's up to those. I'm going to go ahead and just update the PWD to root since I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there. There's no particular reason I use this particular one, it's just the one I grabbed. Although I also know this is one that worked for me last time. I'm not entirely sure if it's best if you use a different one, but I know it worked for me last time, so in the interest of of being quick, I'm going to go ahead and just use that one. Terminate channel. Should drop us back into an interpreter. I'm going to go ahead and upload the make file into there again. Cool. Drop back into the shell. CD to the root. Cool. Go ahead and check that. Should be in there. Make clean. This may work, it may not. Okay, it did not work, no worries. So I'm not entirely sure why it didn't work. I'm actually getting different errors to what I'm used to, which is actually kind of annoying me because this doesn't appear to be an error that I've come across before. It should work, but it doesn't seem to be giving me, I don't think. Make file, module, reverse shell.c. Let me just check I didn't mess anything up on my build. I don't think so. In bash, dev TCP 10, 10, 14, 7, 139. That should all work, although I'm not getting the normal output that I get, which is not ideal, since to be honest, I could do with not having to have this errorless compilation. Make C, entering directory, mod post 0 modules, building module stage 2, make leaving directory. What we're expecting is a different output to that, so I'm a little bit miffed as to why it isn't working, and I don't really have the time to explore it in this video. Let me just check that all my contents is check that everything's correct, check that it copied over right. It should have done, but I'm just going to check it anyway. Show.c. Yeah, that looks okay. I thought it wasn't going to work for a second because it was taking a second, but it seems to be okay. And my IP's in there too, yeah. Cat. Make file. Yep, looks okay to me. Make clib modules for the build and modules clean. Interesting. I'm not entirely sure why that isn't working. It should work, but it isn't. It's gonna have a think real quick. I know what the issue was. I think I was missing the OBG. Okay, right. I got it. And that was what the issue was. I was just thinking to myself, I was checking my notes as to how I wrote it originally, and it turns out that was what the issue was. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and just get out of here real quick. We go ahead and upload what I did last time. Upload makefile. Yeah, you can see here the O is missing there. Go ahead and shell. And CD root. You always have to make sure you're copying correctly, as I obviously failed to do in this occasion. Make clean. I'll probably leave this error in the video because I think it's probably beneficial to watch me mess up, to be honest. Part of me wants to just, edit it out, but I think that it may actually serve maybe more helpful. And maybe not, I don't know. I guess you could always skip that part, but I think I'll probably keep it in just because I think it just goes to show that, everything doesn't go smoothly, and maybe some of the troubleshooting. But in my case, it was literally a case of just reading the contents of this and saying, is it right? Comparing to the thing here, yes, and now it's actually working. So now this is working. So that was the issue. I basically just missed the O in the word object, which is obviously a really stupid error on my end. But, things happen and things can't be perfect. Okay, so moving on. Now we have that working, we can go ahead and just run this here. Hit paste. I don't know if I pasted the wrong thing. It did. I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter because it's just easier. try and paste this again. See if ls is working. Cool. Yep, paste. And running that. Yep, cool. Now we have a root shell ID. Sweet. So now we have root. Go ahead into my my obligatory command to basically just pull down the relevant files, paste that, and boom, we have the user for markers, and we should have the root for root, the flag for root. Cool. So I think that's everything. Again, apologies for the messing up in the middle. I kind of just I've been having some internet issues. I've got a few things to do today. The box expires today, so I've been a little bit rushed, to be honest. And obviously messed up here. But again, like I say, things happen. I think if anything, it's just a tribute to checking that your simple text files are just correct. You know, it's such a minor thing. And there was no errors to say, oh, you missed the B, or, you know, doesn't know what BJ is, kind of thing. Because it's obviously missing the O. But yeah, hopefully this video was helpful, at least in a demonstration that, you know, it's not as simple to just, you know, root these machines. Things happen, your internet dies, and yeah, just hopefully it works as a testament to that. But thanks again, everyone, for watching. Like I said, I'm going to try and upload more frequently. I've been uploading the HackTheBox boxes, basically just trying to get some consistency with them, as well as I'm hoping to upload some educational videos too, some like Black Hat Python stuff, cloud stuff, mobile, etc. And just all areas of pen testing, really, because there's a lot to know and there's a lot to learn, and the more you know, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So yeah, I'm hoping to try and basically get that out. But just to summarize, thanks for watching, everyone. Take care, and like and subscribe, as people on YouTube nowadays say, don't they? Take care. Bye.